Myers Briggs to me is a tool that's very useful in terms of not only understanding myself, but understanding the person that I'm talking to. I mean, Frank, you mentioned your communication issues with people thinking that you're talking down to them or something along those lines. What if you think in terms of Myers-Briggs? Myers-Briggs is not the be-all and end-all. It's not even close, of personality analysis. But what if you think in these terms, what will happen, what is useful, is that it gives you tools to analyze other people and think about how they might receive information from you in a better fashion. Some people, as you will see, respond to hard deadlines. Others do not. And if you know how you respond to those deadlines, it will help you in tailoring your discussions with other people and what other people can rightfully expect from you. Okay, so Myers-Briggs, I could spend a day talking about Myers-Briggs, and I'm not going to do that to you. It's not that interesting. In about 10 minutes, we can cover it by talking about four questions. Each one corresponding to one of the four Myers-Briggs personality traits. Okay, so the first question is, when you're going to a large party, what do you do? And the question there is not so much how you arrive at the party, but how you interact with people at the party. This is the quintessential extrovert versus introvert. Where do you get your energy? Now, extrovert versus introvert means a lot of things to a lot of different people. It does not, in this context, mean how do you, are you the life of the party? What it really means is, do you derive more energy when you are around other people, brainstorming, or do you prefer to think a lot internally before you express an idea externally? And the way that this manifests itself is that if you are with someone, if you are extroverted, and I know, David, you are, if you are extroverted and you are talking to someone who's introverted, when that person provides you with an idea, you cannot treat it as if it's one of your buddies brainstorming with you, because they have thought through whatever the process is before speaking. And if you dismiss them without paying proper respect to the idea, you'll insult them. And they won't tell you, because they're an introvert, they don't even speak about this sort of thing. So fewer activities, more directed speech, that's the quintessential introvert. And for people like me who are very extroverted, you have to be very careful about that you're not being too energetic and too in someone's face if they're a true introvert. The second question is, how did you decide whom to support in the last election? It's not a Clinton-Trump question. This is just basically, what analysis did you do to come up with whoever you decided to support? Now, the way it works here is that there are two different types of people. There are people who are called sensing people, and then there are the intuitive people. S's versus N's. We already had an I in the first trait, so they use an N for this intuitive. The sensing people are people who deal with hard facts. If you give them a pencil and you ask them to describe it, they might give you the length of the pencil. They might give you the color of the pencil. They might note that it has an eraser on the top. The intuitive people are the creative types. If you ask them to describe that same pencil, they can say, used to write a paper. And they might say it's a gateway to expression, or something along those lines, or otherwise describe the use of it. So under the sensing, we have tangible hard facts, focuses on detail, trusts experience and routine, focuses on the here and now, traditional approaches, practical solutions. The intuitive, on the other side, is someone who enjoys theories and concepts and thinking about grandiose ideas, focuses on memory, on impressions more than details, and focuses on possibilities and experiments as opposed to routine and things that have already happened. A focus on the future and more creative generally. And as you imagine, if you might have put the E and the N together, if you've got an extrovert intuitive, you've got somebody who is excited and wants to tell you all these great ideas and always coming up with new ideas. And if you've got someone who is an I and an S together, they are much more concrete, much more quiet, much more thinking about what the actual details are going to be. What's the operations side of the business? Your third question. Your team wins an award, but you can only take 8 of the 10 employees to the banquet. How do you choose who you take? Now, typically, this is when you ask this question, and I would suggest that you think about these questions and you can ask them to people who you know so you can kind of gauge where they fit. If you ask this question, people, and I do, you will get a wide variety of answers. But they will basically break into 2 categories. One, you will get a category of people who are the thinkers who say you take the top 8 of 10 employees. There is an objective ranking. The thinkers use objective logic to get to where they need to be. Conflict is part of communication. Everybody uses the word reasonable. That's their important phrase, reasonable. And they believe that there are black and white rules that govern. The other side of the coin, if you will, there'll be people who say you take the top 8. There are other people who say you find a way to take everybody by making everybody pay 2/10 of a ticket so that the 8 people go for free, but the last 8 people are paid, or the last 2 people are paid for by a community of people who have bought the ticket, things of that sort. And the feelers are, which is this other category, the second set on the slide, are people who believe in subjective information. That for them, it's not reason, but compassion that drives things. And they don't like a lot of conflict if they can avoid it. These are the pleasers. They appreciate a lot of, the word appreciate is very common when they are talking about someone. They don't tear someone down. Their criticisms are generally like, you're doing a wonderful job, but there's a small thing that I think you should pay attention to. And for them, black and white rules are not as clear. Okay, so then the last question is, this is one of my favorite interview questions. How did you plan to go on your last vacation? Again, you'll get a wide variety of answers, but it'll basically boil into 2 different categories. The first category, these are the judgers. These are the people who are very systematic and they're very organized. So systematic, and organized. So in other words, if you say to them, you're going on a vacation in 6 months, they are going to plan out and have some version of an itinerary available for each day of the trip. And they're going to make sure that they have an idea of when the flights need to be taken, all of these sorts of things. For example, I'll give you a concrete example. A friend of mine was interested in going to see the Black Panther movie, which is coming out in, I guess it's this weekend. She sat down and figured out which theaters were showing it, what times were available, and what we needed to do to buy tickets to be able to go when on opening day. Me, I'm much more of the lower side, the second half of these, which are the perceivers, which is much more casual, a whole lot more loose, but to speak about it positively, they don't make any decisions early. They are spontaneous. They are more flexible with regard to changes in the schedule. A change in the schedule for my friend planning to go to Black Panther would be catastrophe. She wouldn't know how to deal with it. Me, it's no big deal. I swing with it easily. I'm always seeking new information. She is always seeking closure. She is very methodical, and I'm like, which way can we look at this to be innovative and new and different? So those are the 4 different characteristics. You have done a Myers Briggs test, so you have an idea of what this means. But what does that mean for you in business? Well, once you know someone else's type, you will know better about how to communicate with them. For example, if you figured out that you have got a judger, the J, not judgers in their prejudicial, prejudice people or anything like that, but you've got a J who works with you, you need to give that person the logistical responsibilities whenever possible. And if you've got somebody who's a P, the last thing any person who is a perceiver wants to do is to be stuck in a logistical job working for a judger, because they'll fail. They'll fail. No question at all. So You will know how to inspire people better. You'll know how to validate them and make them feel validated. And you'll have a better idea of what tasks you need to assign them. And that starts with you. One of the things that we're going to talk about is when you go to find business partners, to find people who are compatible with you, you need to be looking for someone who is a different type than you. I come back every time I run these tests as an ENFP, and I will tell you that whenever I need to hire someone to work for me, if they aren't different than me in at least 2, if not 3 or 4 of those characteristics, I'm not interested in hiring them. I don't need to hire me. I don't need another ENFP in my office. The last admin that I had was ESTJ. So the only difference between the two of us was that the only thing that we had in common was that she was an extrovert like I was an extrovert. And she was my detail person, because when you combine the S, which is someone who's very concrete, with the J, who are the planners, you get a very powerful administrative person. And so while I won't tell you that you must, and I've run over my schedule, I apologize. I just noticed the time. I apologize. If you can, any person that you're going to hire to work for you, you should have do one of these tests. And it's kind of a fun thing to talk about. And you can do it in such a way that they won't feel confronted about the whole thing. But that's just my F talking, because I don't want to confront people. It's an important tool.